Feels like a really long time, Corey.
Right?
Yeah. And it's only been 2 days.
It's crypto time in a bull market, though, so it's kind of been 2 weeks.
It was an insane weekend for most of us here because we're all kind of, in the wax community doing stuff. That was one hell of a pump and not so bad of a drop, really, in the grand scheme of things.
No, it's still if it wants to pump up that high and then land it the all-time high previously and retest that, that's just good science right there.
All right. I'm excited. It's Monday Morning Chill. We got Jona and Hydropwrd. I don't know, John. I'm glad you put John in there because I wasn't sure what to call
hold on. Let's just make this show where you try and say that name like a dozen more times.
So you all know Jona because Jona joins us on Mondays, usually the first Monday of every month. But we got John here from NFT Insider for the first time, which is kind of cool. And so lots going on. So you start, Corey. What do you got? Any updates from our end? That you want to go over? Yeah, I'm talking to you, man.
Man, updates, Jesus. Well, everybody's probably a little bit still consumed with the high of watching wax go to 62 cents, and then come back a little bit. But yeah, it's now retesting its sort of seasonal highs, right? We got up to 40 last time, and it's kind of hanging out there now. That's just yay. So when wax actually moon, it feels like it's wax's turn, frankly, right? And to me, there's been this massive imbalance between the price that speculators see as the wax price, or whether or not wax will be the next thing to moon, and just the sheer amount of economic activity that's going on in the wax blockchain, right? And then all you have to do is watch Atomic Hub over the last few days. That's it's 6 million in a day, and then the next day wax is hold my beer, and then it's 7 million, and then 8 million, and then 10 million. And basically everyone and their dog is getting into a farmer's game. I bought an $800 NFT goose because I'm a fucking idiot. Ready to go, right? Things are happening, and yeah. That's got to have an effect on the price. Just the amount of secondary market activity that's going on. It's no longer that loop where you have a big company, any brand come in, make some NFTs, sell them all for wax, get a bunch of wax, and then sell that wax at dollars, right? It was creating this kind of wheel that was sort of making the wax price, I think, kind of stable. But there's so many NFTs out there. So many people need them on the secondary market. And that number is wax to NFT to wax over and over and over again. And I think that market cap's just getting big enough so that the price has no choice, which is good.
7.2 million daily wax volume today. That's insane. Just today. And I guess the last 24 hours, but still. And that's on a weekend. People aren't even really hanging,
Yeah, it's been even higher the last few days, but it has to stop at some point, or at least it has to slow down at some point. A bit, just temporarily. We're just.
So let's point to John for a quick sec. John, you started this little project called NFT Insider, and now I guess you guys have kind of a partnership with Jona and Atomic Hub type of deal. So I'm kind of curious. You guys are mainly focused on wax. So what's your take? From Jona's side. He can see the volumes of the prices, but what's your take on projects coming into space or projects doing things in the wax space?
Well, a note on the price. We joked in the mod chat of the NFT Insider Discord that I did my first stream at the weekend, and just before the stream it was at 40 cents, and just after it was at 50. So I'm not going to say I had anything to do with it.
You're not going to say it. More going to be oh my god. Hydropwrd is the answer to everything. By the way,
you should stream more often.
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, is anybody watching the price now? Do we even know what's going on right now?
But in terms of projects on the wax blockchain, obviously every Sunday I do a calendar, and last week was just insane. There were so many high quality projects either launching or launching a second series, or collections with both sort of large IP collections and real homegrown projects with really strong communities also holding drops, and I think that's really helped to drive the wax economy in the last week or so. As Jona said, it does have to calm down at some point. we've had our first Waxoween, let's say, and we've got our first Wax Christmas ahead of us. So who knows? Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, hold on that. And Jonah, I'd love to get your take on this. Like, it has to calm down sooner or later. I think like it's at 10 million a day now. Like, it could easily go to 100 million a day before calming down back to 10 million. Am I wrong about that?
I wouldn't be opposed to that. Let's say it like this. No, I mean we just had like last week. We just had like, I don't know, pretty much record day after record day after record day after record day, and all of the time I was thinking like, okay, I mean, it can't go like this infinitely. At some point, it just doesn't work anymore, and it's been going down a bit, but I think in a very healthy way. Like it's been pretty crazy, the volume. Like the last month and especially the last week or two.
Yeah.
A lot of things are happening on the Wax chain, and that's sort of, I'm really happy about that, because like 2 or 3 months ago, volume on Wax was sort of going down, slowing down after all the initial Alien Worlds MLB hype. And people were asking me like, hey, what's going on? And I was always like, I'm not worried. I know that there's lots of games in development which will come out at some point and which will drive volume then. And I believed that, but still, like, volume was slowly going down, and I was like, it would be nice if that happened soon. And now it's happening, and I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, like, we're going into the hyperbolic part of the bull run, right, for Bitcoin or whatever. Like, maybe, right? This isn't trading advice, blah, freaking blah, 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 right? But if it goes the way it's gone in the past, things will get much crazier before they get less crazy. And I think that's going to be true for the price of Wax, but I also think it's going to be true for the projects on Wax. So, like, for me, way dumber things than a 10x in volume right now are happening on other chains where way less stuff is going on, right? So, like, it really could get to that point where we see 100 million in a day on Atomic, and then when it does cool back down, it'll cool back down to where it's like 10 million a day, because the secondary market's just going to keep churning, right? Like, it will at some point. It's definitely going to sort of, kind of ebb or whatever. But who's to say that the lows just don't keep cranking higher and higher and higher no matter what happens with Bitcoin? Like that, I think we're, I hate to be the guy saying that we could be seeing a paradigm shift, because that always means that a crash is coming, right? But at the same time, like with NFTs, they have ignored the up and down fluctuations of the general market at a pretty consistent rate. So like we'll have to sort of see what that looks like over the next year.
Well, and the whole market's been pumping, and I watched an interesting kind of show today. It was a TA show. One of the better, I think, TA traders, like, probably makes a living off of it. Like, grew up on the Arca Stock Exchange with his brother on the floor, in Chicago, with his uncle. Does this kind of for a living, moved into crypto. And he actually shouted out Raoul Pal. So Raoul Pal was talking today about this fractal that is like kind of in Ethereum right now that's mimicking what Bitcoin was in 2017. And he kind of went through the TA on this and looking at it, and it was quite interesting. So I don't necessarily know if you can put that much faith behind fractals, but like, he's a person that I've seen be right time and time and time again. And he was talking about this. So when you notice it, it was interesting to me, because the whole market kind of this weekend, like, a lot of it dropped. A lot of it was in the red, except Wax just went nuts. It pumped, right? And then, like, coming back out of the weekend, you saw Ethereum up like almost at almost like it didn't move. It's back up, raring to go again, and you've got like a bit of a pullback in Wax. So it's really interesting, and I'm kind of excited to see, like you said, how NFTs on not just Wax, but some of these other blockchains are going to behave as well, right? And so also, I wanted to ask you guys, like, what do you think, like, was the impetus for this? Because, like, we don't know. Is it just like time catching up? Like, there were some new announcements in Wax as well with the general, the general council was recently announced as well. Like, is there anything, or is it just irrationality of markets and a ton of new projects like seeing the light to drop in and release like NFTs that are games that are going nuts, because play to earn on this ecosystem that we're in right now is huge, right?
Well, I mean, I would say when we created Atomic Hub, it was meant to be created for games built that are using NFTs. And back then, we didn't call them play to earn yet, but that's sort of what we were thinking when we created it. Like, that's what we wanted to build. We wouldn't have called it that, but that's what it would have been. And it took the market a year to realize this, but now it's coming out. And sort of now Atomic Hub is really being used for what it was initially created for. And that's not saying that collectibles or art projects are bad, but that's sort of what our vision was behind it. And I think quite clearly, like these last few weeks and perhaps the last month has really been projects releasing and projects releasing often not even the full game, but sort of the first alpha versions. And people see the value in that. And people want to get in, and that's how our trading volumes get generated, and that's why we see an increase in users. So for me, it's like looking at the trading volume. Of course, there's always some like hype component, but at the very basis of it, it's not just irrationality. It's just new good projects being released.
Yeah, I mean, the chart to me, like Wax making a move like this was inevitable. So it could have been anything, but also like the volume of NFTs being bought and sold and traded on Atomic and elsewhere on the Wax blockchain, moon to frick. Like there's, as far as like leading indicators go, like that's a pretty good one, right? So, I mean, you can't really get that wrong. You're not going to have a situation where you see that much of a spike, like an almost exponential spike in volume being traded on Wax, and the Wax price not, having some kind of effect on it. Like, where's that Wax going? Like, it's being separated into more and more hands over time. There's more demand to grab it, and it's just basic supply and demand economics, right? The more people want Wax, the higher the price they're going to pay for it. And then they're moving that into a market that was already primed for it to make a really, really strong move anyway. It just kind of feels inevitable.
Yeah, where's our tower? We got to get another one of those up now, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, so John, like I remember having a conversation with you not so long ago about like how you kind of choose what to write about, right? And so I'm wondering if you're noticing like a lot of projects that are coming that are in the gaming or the NFT space that are coming to you and saying, hey, do you want to write about us? Like, do you want to do you have that in your social channels as well? Because you're writing about all sorts of games, mainly. I mean, you do cover NFTs of all shapes and sizes, but I'm just kind of curious, is it gaming that seems to be the in thing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially in the last couple of weeks, I mean, we've seen Farmer's World now hit the #1 collection, at least being traded on Atomic Hub, and I think Farming Tales is now #5. And they've kind of come out of the blue in the last 4 to 6 weeks or so and just vaulted their way all the way to the top. Blockchain gaming is, the on-trend topic on the marketplace at the moment, and it's what people want to hear from me. People are asking me, "Oh, hey, can you write about some blockchain games?" And also, projects are also reaching out to me to get some coverage as well. So, I mean, as you've said, I think there's been a lot of betas, a lot of alphas, a lot of hands-on things that the community can play with in the last couple of weeks. We've seen so many. Golden Cage released a public beta at the weekend. Immersive's had another free weekend this weekend. There's all sorts of other things going on. Blockchain gaming is definitely the on-topic trend. I think that's going to continue that way through to the end of the year as more alphas and betas and more hands-on things get released. Yeah, I think we're set for a really interesting Christmas, let's say, games-wise.
Yeah, and Nuno in the comments mentioned, I hate to admit it, but like it's possible. Anything's possible, right? Facebook announcement, Metaverse seems to have pumped a lot of possible systems. I mean, that's possible. Like you said, Immersive's had a free weekend. There was the Waxoween thing with our friend Nifty going on a different blockchain as well. We sent some musicians to Yoshi Drops. There was a Metaverse music concert in another, Metaverse across a few different other Metaverses as well. And I mean, we haven't even released really the news about our estate sale that's coming up like the beginning of this month in the UpLift, right? So like I'm sure a lot of these other projects, like we've been planning this for quite a while, right? Like we're not really changing anything in our timeline due to any of this stuff. But it's kind of interesting to see, and I'm just kind of curious, like you have a lot of people like looking at this and thinking like, okay, this is 2017 again. And it's like, I've been in heavy almost for a complete cycle. like when we hit, you know, the maximum, like that will be a complete cycle for me because I pretty much bought in at the top. So like that's coming. I don't know. Like for Wax, I haven't, right? For a lot of these other projects, I hadn't. But like it's interesting. And like I like to see like a lot of there's a lot of artists now that seem to be like, you know, diversifying as well. Like a lot of projects or people coming and releasing like little series and things on like from Ethereum on Wax and things like that. Like, so what do you guys think? Like some of the, well, I want to ask you guys, like, I'm sure you've heard of this little thing called Blue Deck. What do you guys think is going on there? What do you guys think is happening with Blue Deck? Do you think it's good for the ecosystem? Do you think that it's having an effect on people's mentality, on the security of the token, on the security of the games? What are your thoughts?
I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, you know, hearing all sorts of things from a bunch of not just sort of project owners but collectors as well. People are obviously incredibly receptive to it, and the fact that they're, you know, quote unquote strapping rockets to all these projects on Wax is obviously a good thing for creators and collectors alike. I'm not sure how much I should say, having, you know, been in touch with them for forever, with, you know, with trying to get Blue Deck promoted and things. But in general, I think it's a great thing for the chain.
Yeah, it's funny actually, John. I was just remembering that like when Blue and I were first starting to talk about it, you were like I think you were the first person we talked to about the idea, sitting in his backyard. Like, I don't know, it feels like 10 years ago, but it might have been like 3 months ago. Anyway, yeah, it's been pretty magical. I think we just did some analysis a couple of days ago. We're at 1.5 million in total value locked after about 8-9 days, which is like, I know it's gonna be way bigger, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, so that took a week. Like that, you know, it's kind of interesting to see where all that's gonna go.
But I think people are just generally looking for a place to park tokens as well, right? Like, because like tokens are moving up and down, and we see this with NFTs a lot, right? Like they don't really move that much. And I was corrected the other day. I didn't know this, but it's not happening on Wax, so I totally missed it. But like I was thinking, like, you know, it's kind of hard to short NFTs, right? Like, I mean, but I guess it does happen. I've heard on Ethereum on some places.
You can short NFTs. How's that supposed to work?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just like, but it's not like you can do it like tokens, right? But somebody mentioned it in a stream that I was on, that like, you know, there are people that are kind of doing it in other chains. I mean, which makes sense, but like, I don't know, why would you ever want to short? You know, I don't know why you would ever want to short a gaming NFT or like a piece of art that you're like invested in. Like, I don't know, maybe you can speak on that, Jona. Maybe you know a little bit more about that, but it just seems to me like to be a little bit more of a stable place to park your money, right? Like NFTs in a way, I'm gonna get myself into trouble because I don't really mean this, but like you could parallel them more to real estate than I think you could like to traditional money, right? Like you could move your money from American dollars to Japanese yen, or, you know, to euros. But you know, if one of them fails, like the good chances are that others are going to fail, right? Like, whereas if you put it in real estate, or you put it in some like, you know, tangible place that has an ulterior use case, I mean, it might get hyped up, but it's probably not going to get shorted. I don't know. I mean, can you short an NFT? Can you? I guess if you have a whole bunch of them, you can sell it. I don't know how it works really, but yeah.
I do think some people try. You know, when often in my Discord, if there's a particular drop, you know, about 30 minutes after they've bought an NFT, they're like, oh, you know, the price is going down on secondary, and I've lost all my money. And it's I've always been, you know, pushing for those sorts of people, or trying to get them to think about long-term value. I do think there's a lot of, not necessarily education, but trying to teach people not to go for the short-term value, because I think a lot of these projects on Wax, there's a lot more value if you do hold them long than try to short them. obviously I wouldn't be one to ever tell people how they should trade their NFTs. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I didn't hear anyone trying to short NFTs yet. It would probably be a bit difficult, just from a technical point of view. But I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's sort of too illiquid if you look at just this individual NFT to really short it. But then again, I also agree with you, John. And I mean, that's also where I'm not going to tell you how to trade your NFTs. That's your decision. But I mean, I feel like there's lots of good projects where you can really look at them and see like they will build something real, and they will. And some of them might still fail, but I feel like that's where I would park my money if that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I believe I've talked about it in the past. I'm sort of locked out from the own ecosystem because I'm not really buying and trading stuff just to avoid any conflict of interest. But like I see a lot of things happening, and some projects I'm not sure if they will succeed, and some projects I look at them and then I see the team behind it, and I think like this sort of has to work. Like how can it not work? And that's probably what I would do. Find these projects and find out what the real value is and what NFTs would be valuable in any such cases. That's sort of the most fun. Then if you want to do short-term stuff or even short NFTs, maybe if it works for you, go for it. But it's probably quite a complicated setup.
Personally, I think my favorite thing that's come out of the whole space in the last month, I mean, other than some of the stuff that like I'm directly involved in, but was the Warsaken. I thought that's so cool. Like, how can you better, enable the whole ecosystem by just like picking up a whole bunch of different projects, NFTs, and finding like somewhere to use them. And I think that's really interesting. Like Kate as well, the tokenized NFT contract and the ability to do that and move them over to Alcor, right? What else do you guys think is a really, groundbreaking thing that's come out of Wax in the last, month or two? Because I think there's been a lot.
Actually, it's cool that you mentioned Warsaken. That's something that I looked at as well, and I talked to them. And that's why I'm thinking like this is proper high quality stuff that they're doing. Like then looking at what they're doing makes me excited. And that's like I always want to be very careful with that. Like it's not an endorsement by me. You should. The same thing with verifications on Atomic Hub. Those are not endorsements. Please check that yourself. We do not want to have all that burden on our shoulders. But that looks really cool. And that's like it looks exciting to play when it comes out, and I think it will actually be quite soon. So
I think
I'm glad you said that, Sir John. As far as like, because you definitely don't want to have that on your shoulders, right? Like that'd be a tremendously insane burden and just wouldn't be fun to have that, right? But you should be able to get excited about stuff. We talk about this on our show all the time, like the projects that are out there. I think Daniel Day said something. We want to have like 100 different investments in this space. That's the way to play it, right? Like if you're whaling into one, any one of these projects, I don't care which one it is, could fail for 100 different reasons, right? Like good reasons, whatever, and they could be honestly trying to build exactly what they were trying to build, and it could just some of these things are just going to fail again for like 18 million different reasons. We don't know. Nobody does, right? But there's so many exciting things about it. Like we reserve the right to be super stoked about stuff, even if a certain percentage of them are gonna falter or slow down or outright fail. Which I haven't I'm not sure that I've seen any products that I've been close to out and out just drop the ball on Atomic. Do you guys know of any that have just like where it's like a total loss, failure, can't talk to them anymore?
I don't think so.
Right? Like that, like
I mean, if I knew, I probably wouldn't say it on a public live stream.
Fair enough.
but I don't think
that makes sense. I'm just like
none come to mind at least.
Anyway, so yeah, so far it's gone pretty well.
I agree.
So, John, I have a question for you. Early days in the Wax ecosystem, everyone was really excited about, the IP that was coming in, right? We had the Tops IP, we had the William Shatner IP come in, we had even not so long ago, really, even the Street Fighter IP, right? Now, some of these have hung around. Some of these have surprised us and done better than I thought they were. Some of them have left and went to other blockchains. Like, what's your take on the differentiation between like original IP on Wax and these big brand names?
I think it's interesting. Obviously, if a brand such as Hasbro or Hot Wheels, etc., comes onto the chain, it's a brand that everybody's familiar with, and people, even if they're not going to buy anything, will at the very least check it out and be like, hey, I want to see what they're doing. I have some feelings about that brand from my childhood, or I've collected them for X amount of time. I'll go and check them out. But I think a lot of collectors are, well, at least the ones in sort of the collectors that I speak to are more excited about sort of the utility aspects of blockchain gaming and sort of those sort of homegrown projects rather than a nifty NFT from a big IP. But it's I think it's different for different people, of course. Some people absolutely love GPK and they'll want to buy any GPK NFT that comes out, whereas some people are much more excited about where blockchain gaming is going to go and want to get their feet wet in a bunch of different projects. As you can see from sort of the numbers on Atomic Hub, as I mentioned earlier, you've seen Farmers World and Farming Tales explode in the last couple of weeks. And I think we're going to see that trend continue. That's not necessarily to say that large IP drops are, going to fall away or people aren't going to be as interested in them, because I think they always are, because they have that in-baked brand value. But the extra benefits of these gaming projects, the utility, the play-to-earn aspect, is what's driving collectors, in my opinion, at the moment.
I want to know if Corey's goose is fattened up in the 3 days since he's bought it.
I need to like have somebody teach me how to use that stuff. Because like right now I'm just sitting on it and I'm like, I go in the game and I'm like, how do I put the goose in the thing? And they're like, I feel like a fucking idiot, frankly.
Yeah,
I have no idea what I'm doing. I need help so bad.
Okay, let's do a show on Farmers World. That's always fun. I like those shows.
I'll just play it and like somebody who's infinitely smarter than me. And I think it's actually Farming Tales is what I got into. Farmers World, I like, and this might not
so
be
many of them
true. I just feel like Farmers World is I feel like it's peaking, and I just can't make myself buy into something while it's peaking. I just can't do it. But it might. Who knows? It could 10x from here. I have no idea, right? Like I have no clue at all. It's hard for me to do it.
I'm pretty good at buying the top. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're my favorite top signal, frankly.
Right. What was I going to say? It's interesting that you said that, John, because I was thinking about it. Like I was thinking about that exact same thing today, and I had thoughts, last week about this, and then I realized today that my thoughts were all wrong. Because what I was thinking was like some of these like bigger IPs that are coming into the system. I think like maybe what's happening is that like they're not interacting with the community, right? And so that's causing a bit of a disgruntlement. But then I realized that like one of the best, selling IPs on Wax of all time, really, if you look at it, like from where they came from and the amount of marketing that they did was almost nothing, was that Bratz series that came out way back in the day. And like they never interacted with the community or anything, and like it got hyped up. I don't know whether it's because they cut it off, whether it's because like it had all of this stuff, right? And it's kind of like, I would say probably the original IP that it reminds me most of would be like the Ultra Rare guys and what they're doing over there with their series. Like the Blockchain Heroes are pretty okay too, but I think that Ultra Rare guys have been able to like flip it up enough that they're doing that like very similar kind of like community engagement on probably like the highest in terms of just an NFT level and not gaming level. Right, like Blockchain Heroes, I shout out to them. They've tried to keep it fresh and keep it new. I think it's hard. Do you think that any of these card games, because we've seen them. Corey and I have seen them come in. There's a lot of like card games. Like there's one on the banner of Atomic now. It's like the play to earn card game, Noah or something like that. Like a lot of these games are reminiscent of games that we used to play as kids, you know, sitting in the park with real life cards, right? What's your take on those in comparison to like other more kind of traditional games like metaverses or things like that?
It's an interesting question. As we've already said, there's lots of betas and alphas and all sorts of coming out at the minute, but there's so many of them coming out. You know, there's so many iterations of card games. There's so many iterations of even farming games. Somehow, I'm not sure why that's the hot topic of the moment, but it is. I think a lot of them are in such an early stage. It's difficult to say, you know, how they're going to do in the future. You know, I've got my hands on a couple of alphas and things at the moment. I can definitely see the excitement and see reasons for why collectors are so excited and why there's such an increase in value, especially in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you talk about Noah. You know, they've been a project that's been around in the community for such a long time, releasing NFTs. You know, they've been working on this game behind the scenes, and now they're finally at a stage where, you know, they can start to release little bits of gameplay to the community. And in Noah's example, you know, they've been around for such a long time. I mean, I think they started roughly when NFT Insider had started, sort of very early on this year. And they've got that sort of 8 months of building up a community just around the arts, you know, never selling their community on the idea that they were going to build a game. And then here it is, you know, I believe they're a couple of weeks away from releasing it. And in that sort of example, I can certainly see them having some success. But we are, of course, seeing more projects come out of the gate saying, hey, we're building a game. It's going to have NFTs in it. Here's who we are. I think there's probably an interesting conversation to be had there about, you know, how a game is promoted, I guess. You know, do you come straight out of the gate with it, or do you try and sell the NFTs first and then think, it'd be nice to build some utility for these through a game? But again, who knows? There's so many games and apps and card projects, etc., that it's difficult to say.
Well, I mean, there never was any utility for the majority of, you know, collectibles in the real world, physical collectibles, right? Like, I mean, you could read comic books, but that's not why they went, you know, crazy price wise, right? Mm-hmm. You could really the only ones that actually had utility in the real world were those like Pokemon type card games where you could actually, you know, play the game with them, right? Like your baseball cards, things like that, dude. So, but I think this is a good question too. I don't know, you know, if you have any takes. I can't even think of an answer personally, but, you know, what do you think would be the best, most interesting application that may arise of the wax technology and system? That's a pretty broad question, but go for it.
Well, I mean, I would say, like, for me personally, where we're seeing that right now, like, the most interesting aspect about wax for me was always like this gaming aspect, and that's sort of what's happening right now. So that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it's the best and most interesting application yet. Probably not. There will probably be a lot of iterations on that, and maybe there will even be some other stuff that I haven't thought about, and maybe that will be way cooler than play to earn. I don't know. It would be pretty cool, because play to earn is pretty cool. If there's something that's even cooler, then I want to know. But honestly, like, for me, what we're seeing right now is the thing that drew me to wax, sort of. I mean, that was like, I mean, when wax was created, it didn't even have this vision of NFTs, really. It just had this vision of, let's create an environment where game items can be traded. And then game items became NFTs, and then these NFTs weren't necessarily game items, and now NFTs are becoming game items again, or like game items are becoming NFTs. It's hard to say, but it's sort of all coming together, and for me, that is the interesting part.
Yeah, I think I'm in much the same vein. Interestingly, for me, it wasn't it wasn't actually the play to earn aspect that got me to, or you know, the gaming NFT aspect that got me onto Wax. It was actually the art. You know, I think it was Digital Ducks and the Crypto Minis were sort of the first two projects that brought me to Wax. I thought, hey, these are really cool. So, you know, I checked them out, I followed them, and I got more invested into the space. And now, you know, we're seeing all of these NFTs packed full of utility, whether it's, you know, they can be staked with other projects or whether they're part of their own sort of blockchain game. I think we're only sort of in the infancy of the play to earn philosophy, and I think it has a very long way to go. It will certainly be interesting to see what applications people come up with for Wax NFTs in future. You know, on a completely personal level, and, you know, I've had conversations with the past about, you know, how NFTs could be a part of real estate, or how they could be a part of, you know, real world ticketing and things. Whether that ends up being an application of Wax NFTs, who knows? But I think there's certainly a lot of scope for Wax NFTs to move into those sorts of spaces.
Corey, do you want to take a snap at this one, or can't hear you here?
Sorry, I muted. Yeah, no, he's just right. I mean, that's like this is all so unbelievably new that, you know, we're seeing the play to earn stuff kind of start to flesh out. Still, total beginning, right? Like, this is, you know, going to be a dramatically expanded market 4 years from now than it is right now. I think, like, I think it would be deeply unreasonable to suspect anything else, because, like, we're in the throwing spaghetti at the wall freaking phase of this whole thing, right? Like, you know, we're you know, trying out a bunch of new things. Everybody's learning from everybody else. The marketplace is becoming, you know, that much more, you know, capable and rounded out, and you know, more people flooding into the space every day, right? So yeah, I mean, that, you know, where that goes from here. It's funny too. We were talking about like shorting stuff. Like, I hate shorting things as a rule. I think it's super pessimistic and annoying. And mostly just because I think, like, all the news articles I saw about it was that one dude that was right that one time shorting Tesla over and over and over again and getting wrecked. Like, yeah, it's like how to burn $1 billion for ego. It's just really, really terrible. Anyway, but there's ways to do it, right? Like that. It's just like, it's an ailment I have at this point. My brain just starts instantaneously trying to duct tape all the tools together from all the things we have to actually make that work. And now with what Kate's doing with tokenizing of NFTs, you know, there's all sorts of ways that you can create, you know, insane instruments around, you know, applying different will, you know, or different situations to any mechanic, right? And I think we're seeing the beginning of that, right? Like that, you know, we don't want to talk about these things as financial instruments, so we won't. But, you know, it's a brave new world, and it's super weird. And I think we've seen like maybe 1 or 2% of how weird it's going to get.
It's interesting to me because I think part of the reason that Wax is kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start was because they were so specialized, right? Like they were really specialized on what they wanted to build and what they wanted to do, compared to the other, you know, some of the other chains out there. And they built it really well. I think, like, with the help of people like Jona, who, you know, came up with a great marketplace, and some of the other builders in the space that have been doing amazing things. And like now we're starting to see like people in other blockchains look at it and say, wow, like this actually works. For me, like, it's not really an answer to that question, but one of the things that I was actually most excited about when I heard about, like, when I learned about it, was the fact that you could actually back NFTs with tokens. Right. And I always thought this was a really cool idea, but almost no one has ever used it. So, like, right. I think, what was that one project we had on, Corey, with the little leprechaun dudes a couple weeks ago? He's used it where he gives out. So some of the ones that you get are backed, and the majority of them aren't.
The kickback dude, Deej.
Yeah, the kickback one. So, like, but I think, like, there's very few projects that have actually used it. And it's like, I always thought it was a really interesting concept, but like, I've never used it either, so I can't complain. But like, there's so many like weird little things that, like, you know, you could potentially do with it, right? Like DeFi is another one, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of people probably not using that whole, you know, Wax Cloud wallet, move it over to Ethereum type of thing. But the people who are, I've heard they're just killing it, right? Like there's so many little things that you can do with it already that people aren't even using. They're just basically buying and selling NFTs and sometimes flipping them. But yeah, like I'm Daniel Day. I don't know if other people want to answer that, but if you have, you know what, you just give the $500 to me. I'll buy a bunch of NFTs and we'll just give them away to the community. We can do it that way. That's the best answer that you're gonna get.
Sort of an interesting question. And like Jona, I'd love to get your answer, especially considering we know you can't do it. But then we'll all definitely let everyone know you definitely endorse that project, and like if it fails, it's totally your fault. It's so mean because I know that's exactly how people are. But just those people aren't watching this show, probably, because I'd be yelling at them. But if you had just $500 and you could only spend $500 and you could only spend it on one project, what would it be? And I'll answer first. And a totally shameless, utter bias on my part. Own that right now. The gratitude sale's coming up in about a week or 5 days, I guess. And the stuff there, like I don't own any land in gratitude yet, and I want to, so I would be spending it on picking up a few pieces of land there.
Yeah, that's probably a good choice from your perspective. I am very much into this project.
Is it biased? 100%.
No, you're right. Like one, I can't really answer that, but also not just because I don't want to, but also because I'm not sure. Like probably for me personally, if I were to spend $500, it would probably be on just some NFTs that look really cool. Like I think in one of our last sort of live streams, I mentioned this my deadly stabby quack, my small duck that is wiggling around with the knife. I find a lot of value in that for my life. I feel better knowing that I have it.
You said that last time. Like the duck with the knife was just like it just hit you right in the heart.
Yeah, it did. That was a very good investment.
That's fun.
Not monetary, but just the value it brings to my life, the happiness it brings to my life.
That's awesome.
No, but I mean, there's probably lots of different approaches to how you can spend $500, and then it really depends on what your goal is. If it's to maximize like long-term monetary value, or if it's just maybe you just want to maximize life happiness, and your happiness comes from having cute ducks with knives. Maybe that's just you.
Jona's a simple man. That's all he needs, guys. That's it. And really, we could only be so lucky to achieve that much joy with duckies with knives. I mean, that's simple. I love that answer. I loved it last time, and I love it even more now. John.
Again, I'm sorry to have to dodge the question, but I think it would be unfair of me to say, hey, pile all your money into this project. I think it depends on the person, and again, it depends on what you're buying for. If you're buying to try and make money, if you're buying to try and make yourself happy, maybe you want to gift an NFT to somebody else and make somebody else happy. Who knows? I think in any case, I would always, for me personally, the people behind the project are just as important as the project themselves. I'm not saying that's how other people should think, but I just always ask people to do their research, find out as much as you can about the people in the project, about the NFTs themselves, and ultimately what makes you happy, what you want to collect. There's so many NFTs in my wallet that I have just because I like the look of them. Not necessarily because they're going to earn me anything, or I just think they're cool. So yeah, that's my very diplomatic answer to that question.
You guys are like the parents, right? Like Jimmy and I could just be shameless freaking loudmouths on the internet, which I mean, we're gonna do that. That's gonna happen, right? But you guys really are like the parents, and we're asking you which of the kids is your favorite. Like you literally like contractually can't answer that question, which is why I ask it all the time, because I am a dickhead. That's how that goes down. I do want to say Ken was looking at, Daniel Day was looking at a Ken membership. I actually bought one of those this morning. Just because I didn't get the last one, and like I know they're gonna do stuff. I have no clue what they're gonna do, but freaking Ken Bozak. I mean, screw it. I just bought one because I'm a degenerate. Still, I did spend almost $500 an NFT. I mean, considering like my last NFT purchase was a fucking $800 goose, so like, you know, the rules are clearly thrown out of the window at this point. Nothing makes any sense, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think that there's a lot of people that like do what, you know, Jona or John mentioned though. Like I've done it, like just buying art that I like, or just buying people that like I want to support. And like we have a lot of artists in the UpLift world even that have come in and put up their, you know, art on the walls and their galleries. And, you know, I'll be going through posts or wandering through the world and I'll see it and I'll just be like, you know, I'll go over to, you know, Atomic, or I'll go over to NFT and I'll have a look at like whatever, like the blends or like the series that are on Atomic, and I'll just be like, wow, like this is just really cool art. And you're in here, you're putting your art up, you're putting it out there. And it's like, it's worth almost nothing, right? It's peanuts. And so like, I'm totally going to support this. Cause like if I was walking down the street, you know, through some random market and I saw a picture in the wall, like on the wall of a store, you know, beside 100 other pictures, I probably wouldn't buy it. But if I was walking down the street and I saw some guy sitting outside painting a picture and I liked his art, I'm definitely going to buy it. Right. And so that's kind of like, you know, the UpLift world for me is interesting because, you know, it's a part of what I do every day, but also those people that are a part of it, that are in there, you know, grinding and using it as their media outlet. Like, I really respect that and I really like it. And so like, I want to support those people as much as I can, even if it's only a few dollars here and there, to enable them to like, you know, create more art and do that more. So I'm kind of the same way. If I could give $500 to like, all, you know, burgeoning artists who are, you know, aching to get out and do more, like I would love to do it. But yeah. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to go soon because Corey and I have a meeting. But I just like want to shout out a couple things. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing a roundtable at the same time as today. So actually 1 hour later than normal. And we're gonna have a bunch of our favorites from the gratitude sector server, and we're just going to be talking about like, you know, gratitude from the beginning and what it was like. So we're gonna have Michael, I think maybe Anders is going to join us, I'm not sure. He sent me a really weird message the other day, like that sounded like some man dying, and it was like, this is me with my normal. And I'm like, why are my friends so weird? He's like, no, I'm really sick and I just wanted to tell you. I'm like, you could have picked a much better way to tell me. I didn't know what was happening. I think Greg's going to join us. I think Joe from Art Vending Machine is going to join us. So that's fun. Speaking of art, you should all come over there. Also definitely check out, speaking of Anders, I'll drop it in the post here in the comments. We did the latest blog article on Anders. Yeah, like the rest of the week will probably be around at our normal 9 o'clock time. Again, Jona's here pretty much every first Monday of every month, and we're really liking it, honestly. And I'm so glad that you brought John along with you today, because like it's just great to sit down. I've actually never met you, John. So just before we finish off, I kind of want to know, like, let's start at the beginning or finish at the beginning, because we started kind of at the end, right? Like, how did you get in here? How did you, what is NFT Insider? And obviously, if you've listened to anything that John said, you should definitely go over and check that site, because that site is all about him, writing really important, like, knowledgeable, smart shit, covering a ton of projects in the space. So what is NFT Insider, John, and who are you, and what are you going to continue to do?
No, thank you for the kind words. So NFT Insider, the entire purpose of it, from my point of view, is to bring context to the Wax blockchain. So whether that's telling people about what drops are going on, or going into deeper dives on artists, and getting people to know the personalities in the space a bit more. So we're probably most well known for the drop schedule that goes out every Sunday. I speak to every artist I can think of and have them bombard my DMs, and then I'll put them all in a list and display it all nicely for the community, so you guys know what's coming up. And apart from that, we also interview different artists every week. We'll do sort of bespoke little articles on specific drops, so everybody knows exactly what's dropping, and why you may want to get onto a specific drop. My aim with NFT Insider is to sort of make it a quote unquote one-stop shop for everything Wax NFT drops. So yeah, that's NFT Insider in a nutshell. We've been doing it for 8 or 9 months now, and we're absolutely going to continue doing it moving forward. We've been mostly written content up to this point, but as I said, this past weekend we did our first stream where I checked out some immersives. That's definitely something I'm going to be doing more of moving forward. And as blockchain games start to sort of come to the forefront, I'll be looking to do some more sort of first looks and reviews and video content in that ilk as well. So there's a huge amount of stuff coming from us in the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years. So yeah, if you want to know what's happening on the Wax blockchain NFT wise, then NFT Insider is the place to be.
And honestly, like, I'd love to have you come and drop by here at least like once a month for an update and let us know what's going on in the ecosystem. Because I think like you're probably on top of it a lot more than us at some points. Like sometimes we're on the ball, but other times we're like so busy, head down, all the three of us doing our own thing that we miss a lot of stuff, right? So like it's nice to have a platform like yours that like is completely 100% dedicated to like covering everything that's happening in Wax. I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
and
that's been great for us. Been great for me as well, because just like you said, you're very immersed in your project. I'm very immersed in doing just Atomic Hub stuff, and John's job is to know about everything, which is awesome. So we have one person on the team who really knows what's going on.
That's awesome. Jimmy, I think that's supposed to be you and me, and we are not doing well.
No, I mean, we used to do really well, but
there used to be almost enough time to know everything, and now it's just like, by the way, I have been messaging me about Farming Tales throughout this hour, and I'm like, learn about Farming Tales. So thank you. Yeah, but I still think we should. I think like Farming Tales is relatively simple, but I think we should do a show on it anyway, just kind of do an update. But we're going to be talking to Nico from Farming Tales and Taco, because they're doing a bunch of integrations with all that stuff, and I've heard that the Blue Dack Claim All freaking taco sauce might be coming out way sooner than I thought. So that's a whole thing. Instead of hit and claim 23 times, it might just be one, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's so difficult because like when we first started the show, it wasn't that difficult to go through the news. It wasn't that hard to go through the news. But even John must know now, like, right? Like you wake up every morning, it's like it's crazy to me because every day, it feels like every day I go into Atomic Hub, there's a new banner. And I remember when banners used to be there for like, a few days at least, right? But now
even a week. Now it's like maybe for like, we'll give you a banner for like 6 hours. We're gonna need about $7 million. What? Demand is what it is, man. It's a scarce resource. Everybody wants it.
Come back and join us tomorrow. I think we're going to delve into what's going on in the gratitude sector, which would be cool. We're going to be giving some updates. I know Corey's got a stream scheduled later today with Ken Bozak.
4 of them, and Sammy Snake and
Sammy Snake. Yeah, I've got a stream scheduled this evening with Crypto Stash and Ricardo from Crypto Rider Rolodex to talk about what's coming up with the upcoming. Wow, there's so much going on in my head that it won't come out. What's going on with the estate sale that's coming up? Later in very soon, actually. Probably, I don't know if we're announcing dates yet. Are we announcing dates yet? Like in November, like sometime the middle between like now and the 10th, like almost the middle, but like just one day more, maybe something like that. Anyway, very soon the estate sale's coming up.
Oh yeah, no, it starts on the 6th.
I didn't know if we were allowed to say it, so it's just kind of like pushing bad math at people and hoping they would figure it out.
Yeah, we're gonna put information about all that stuff out today.
Yeah. Thanks as well. And that's cool. Like this guy, Daniel Knott, apparently he owns the #1 NFT ever created.
That's tight.
NFT Insider. So that's pretty cool.
That's hardcore.
That's awesome.
That's your duck with a knife. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see all of you tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Roundtable on gratitude.
Boom. Did you chop? I'm sorry, I wasn't on the button.
Oh, yeah. I'll chop again.
Okay.